This debate is called AI-generated travel. Is it an innovation or a threat to journalism? The idea of this debate is for you to explore how AI and traditional journalism can coexist, because we have now a new way on producing and consuming travel content after AI, right? So we have here, Joe is a journalist, educator, and director of products and events at the Center for Cooperative Media in USA. And he is passionate about social media innovations and ethics. And Laura, she's a science journalist with a strong background in investigative reporting in Spain and Mexico. And also she has contributing to different magazines and agencies like Sync, muy interesante, The Conversation in Spain, and some others. And she also has a book, and I think she's going to tell us about us now. Laura, would you like to start with your presentation?
Yes. Hello. Hi to everyone. And thank you the School of Journalism for inviting me. And thank you all for your interest and for being here. Sorry for my English. I hope you will understand well everything. So okay, I must confess that when I faced the task of preparing this presentation, at first I was like, wow, I was overloaded with work. I work a lot, and I had a lot of work to do. I'm involved in many projects. I'm a mother of two. So I was facing this new task, and I thought, okay, let's tell ChatGPT to do it for me. Yes, it would be much easier. Let's try. So I tried, and I asked ChatGPT if it could please write me a presentation for pages, like for 10 minutes, from a critical point of view on this topic. And it did. It did it very immediately. It produced these 4 pages, and it looked okay. You know, it was well structured, organized. The information made sense. Like, okay, I said, okay, so that's it. I have the work done. I have my presentation ready. But as the day was coming, as the day was coming closer, this day, today, I was feeling like a little uncomfortable, you know. It was not for an ethical reason, really. It was not like I'm going to cheat these people by just reading what ChatGPT produced. It was not that. I was really uncomfortable with myself because I was thinking, I was wondering, but what do I really think about AI and travel journalism? What does Laura Heather Rivera think about this? Do I have something to say? And the thing is that I have a lot to say. I am a journalist since I've been a journalist for 30 years. I was working as a travel journalist in Mexico for 10 years. And also, I have written this book that Aileen told you of. It's called Esclavos del Algoritmo. It has been published by Penguin this last year in 2025. It's Slaves of the Algorithm. That this book is on how artificial intelligence impacts in all corners of our life. So, like I was this like I wasn't I had to make peace with myself and really reflect on what do I think on travel journalism and AI. So I began to think. I decided to think, and it's wonderful to think. Like, it's very exciting task when you think by yourself. And then I'm going to share. If I want to try to share the screen. A ver. Can you see the am I sharing okay?
Yep.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So I began to think, what would I say about this topic, no? And the first thing that came to my mind was Gulliver's Travels. I don't know if you are, some of you are very young. I don't know if you have read the book, but it's a must. You should read it. If the original book is too much, you can read adaptation for children because shorter. But it's a wonderful book, very witty, very intelligent, and well, it's a good model to see what is when you tell a story about travels, because this is a fantasy, it is a fiction novel, fiction book, but it's very interesting that when you are communicating, when you are writing about travels, um, you're talking about many things more. It's not just this hotel is here and this you can take the bus to the main plaza and the timetable for the museum is this. No, travel journalism is much more than that. So I remembered this book, and I remembered something that Jonathan Swift is the author of this book, and I remembered something that he says in his book on in the travels of Gulliver. He goes to Balnibarbi is called this island, no, this fantastic island, and here he finds a math professor. He finds an Academy of Sciences where he finds a math professor, and Gulliver, who is very curious, like all journalists should be, asks this math professor, what is he doing? What are you doing here? And the professor explains that he is working with his students. They are all working in the to make. I will read the exact quotation, to read all the possible random combinations of all the words in their language, with the aim to produce a complete work superior to anything that could have come from human knowledge. And Jonathan Swift writes, in this is written in 1726, you know, he writes, everyone knew how laborious is the usual method of attaining to arts and sciences, whereas by by his contrivance, the most ignorant person at a reasonable charge and with a little bodily labor might write books in philosophy, poetry, politics, laws, mathematics, and theology without the least assistance from genius or study. He was describing ChatGPT, don't you think? Like it's a method with you don't need to think, you don't need to be intelligent, you don't need to study. You just randomly combine words, and you can write about anything. So he was describing ChatGPT in 1726. The same did Jorge Luis Borges, in his story La Biblioteca Total in 1931, when with this story about the infinite monkey, el mono infinito. He wrote, half a dozen monkeys equipped with typewriters will produce all the books in the British Museum in a few eternities. Okay, so the idea of ChatGPT is not new, as you can see. But let's see, what are we talking about? Because when we talk about AI, we are talking about generative AI, no? These programs that can produce text and images, can like produce them from nothing. And I will read this. This is from my book, Slaves of the Algorithm, and I will read it. It's not magic, really. The trick lies in a powerful algorithm fed with hundreds of billions of words taken from books, forums, and articles on the internet. It's not that the chatbot understands what you ask it, nor does it think about what it answers you. Just as your instant messaging program automatically completes the words or phrases you are going to type, ChatGPT's mathematical model works according to the probability that a sentence will end in a certain way, or that a specific word will follow another. It's pure statistics. So this is very important to have into mind, like this have into account that this all these programs of generative AI, they are just statistics. They are mathematical models that predict the probability that one concept goes after another one, or one word goes after another one in a certain context. They don't understand what you're asking them. They don't make. They don't judge, they don't reflect, they don't no, it's just some kind of advanced statistics uh, programs. So this is very easy to forget, because when you ask for ChatGPT for something, it answers you as if it were a person. The it uses the language of someone that is understanding you, of someone that can the way it talks, the way it refers to you, makes it easy to forget that it's just a mathematical model. And also, when this happens, it makes you think that maybe it's like some kind of creative entity, and it's not. It's not a creative entity, because you are creative when you create things, and it really doesn't create things. It mixes things that from enormous databases, and it makes this kind of collage you say in collages, and yes, and they sound okay. They seem to have sense most of the times, but it's just that if you give a little child, 1 year old child, if you give him a pencil, if you give him something to paint, he paints. He will paint something and say, "This is your mama." No, maybe or with a 2 year old, no, he will make a portrait of his mama, and he never went to a museum. He never got classes. He never got access to a database of portraits of women. He can do that because we humans have this ability of being creative. Artificial intelligence doesn't have this ability. It has many abilities, but not this one. And what are the risks? One of the biggest problems is that it responds to falsehoods with great confidence. It doesn't know what is true or false. It knows nothing about the world. You shouldn't trust what it says, and you should always check it against other sources. This was said by Michael Goodrich, director of AI at the Alan Turing Institute in London. He was interviewed for my book. And well, of course, it doesn't know what is true or false, because we're talking about ones and zeros. That is what is artificial intelligence is made of, ones and zeros combined in different ways. So, but it's not it's nothing more than that. So it's like if the software is made to produce things that more or less make sense, more or less content the user, that's the aim of this software. But it's not the aim is not to value if something is or to analyze if something is true or false, because the concept of true or false is not a concept that artificial intelligence can comprehend. Okay, so yes, look, this is me. Just before this talk, I was having a walk by the beach with this Bloody Mary in my hand, and my very handsome boyfriend was waiting for me there under the palm trees. Uh, yes, this is where we're talking about what is true and what is false. Artificial intelligence doesn't know the difference, and it also allows you to blur this frontier or limit between one thing and the other. There is an app called Endless Summer that probably you all know. This app is with this app, what you can do, you enter your photos and you choose a place in the world, and the app produces photographs or images of you there, like you say, and then you can post them on your social network if you want, like saying I was in Las Bahamas this Christmas, and it produces photos of yourself in Las Bahamas. This is what this app is about. It's an app that dedicates to create these false images of holidays for people, no? And okay, so this is possible. You can do this, but also we have to think. I always go back to the same thing. You have to think. You really like the song of Aretha Franklin. You really have to think if reality is good enough for you, if you want to explore reality and communicate reality and research reality, or if you want to live in a fantasy world. This is something you have to choose, and also you have to think if you want your readers, if you are a journalist, if you want your readers, your public to live in reality or live in a fantasy world. This is something that I have heard many times, is that people that use ChatGPT for their work, a lot of them tell me, like, I use it to generate the ideas or to structure ideas or to find sources. And it's like, wow, it's very useful because it helps me to do these things. But this is misleading, at least for me, because when I tried it for these purposes, I found that at the end it's double work, because it's first I have to read what the artificial intelligence says, then I have to look for the sources, then I have to see if there is something false, then I have to think what if there is something more of my experience that I want to add, then I have to synthesize. So for me, at least, it's more work at the end if you want to do it like in a professional way. At the end, it would be like the difference between creating Frankenstein or having a baby the traditional way. Which one takes more time and more effort? I don't know. You, you think? Okay. And so this image, I put it here because this is a photo of my last Christmas holidays, and I was in a village, in a little village in Spain, and it didn't have anything at all. There were no museums, no restaurants. There was nothing there. But I had a fireplace. I have a fireplace in the house where I was staying. And in this fireplace, we could do many things. These hearts, you see, they are made out of clay, and it's clay we found in a forest, cork tree forest that was next to the house, and it was natural clay on the floor. And with the clay, we made the hearts, and then we cooked them in the in the fireplace. We found also a farmer that was living by, and we made friends with him, and he gave us, as a present, he gave us sweet potatoes, and he showed us how to cook the sweet potatoes in the fireplace. So we did this as well. So if I had to write about being in this village for the holidays, if I had to write an article on a travel article about this, I'm sure that no artificial intelligence could do that. You know, maybe if you ask ChatGPT about this village, ah, for sure it would say something, but you don't know if the information is actual or actualized, or if it's how you say, or if it tells you about hotels that no longer exist. You don't know this, but for sure artificial intelligence won't tell you that there is a farmer that also showed us the way to a spring of water, where we went every day for water to this spring. And artificial intelligence can't do this. No, this is something that you can do, because we humans, there's another thing that only we can do, and machines can't, that is feel. We can have feelings. We can feel for the good, for good and for bad. We can feel, and we can also feel what we can also feel empathy. We can also feel what the other person or our public may feel. And this is something that artificial intelligence cannot do. And this is very important, because when we talk about artificial intelligence, we usually forget that we have the most sophisticated, intelligent, and creative machine ever invented. And we all have it, and we have it all for free. And we usually forget this. We get astounded by all the marvelous things that AI can do, but we forget all the marvelous things that our brain can do. Human brain is capable of doing excellent research, of doing excellent writings, excellent photos. Human brain has many wonderful, sophisticated abilities, and we sometimes forget this. Like maybe because we are very overloaded with work, and we go for help to AI, but we forget that all that we can do by ourselves. We can also innovate. This is what I was telling you before. We can create things that nobody else said before. We can innovate. And what AI does is use what is being said before, like maybe put it in a different way, but doesn't have this ability. And yeah, you can say that artificial intelligence makes your life easier and it saves you time, but also you have to think again, and like ask yourself, what life and time for what? Because if you're a journalist, your work consists on doing your work. If you're a journalist and you tell artificial intelligence to do your work, then why are you a journalist? Mm. This is something that I ask myself. And also, yes, it's what is true is that it is very good for companies. Yeah, because companies save money. It's very good for a company to have ChatGPT writing an article, and so they don't have to pay the journalist. That's a good thing. So it's good for saving money. That's true. But what's the consequence? The consequence is the product. Is you can see the consequence in the product. No, you can have something like a burger made in a fast food restaurant, or a stew made by your mother at home. I think this is a good metaphor to see the difference from a product made by a creative product made by artificial intelligence, or made by a human. I think for me, I don't know for you, but for me, it's a very visual image of the difference. And somehow I think that maybe in a near future, articles and products, journalistic products made by a human, maybe they will be considered as a luxury product, don't you think? Maybe it will be like when you have, like when today you wear a sweater of 100% wool. That is a luxury product, really, no? Uh, I don't know. Maybe we have to reflect on this, because journalism implies these two very basic things. First of all, research, and then produce the information. Both things we can do with our brain. We are capable of doing. Many people say that AI is good for research. Yeah, but your brain is also good for research. So what's the point, really? It makes it faster. Yeah, but then it's not you who is doing the first step of a journalist, that is research. So this is important too. And what are the costs? The costs of using artificial intelligence for making your articles, for making your photos? Well, first of all, it compromises the copyrights of authors. And if we are authors, we are compromising the copyrights of persons that are authors as we are. It uses in the databases that it uses these models, these AI, the generative AI models. We all know that they use works made by people that many of them have copyrights. It also amplifies biases. We know this. It doesn't do it on purpose, and it doesn't do it because it's evil. It just do it because biases are there, and it's not human. Artificial intelligence doesn't have a filter, and it amplifies biases uh, just because they are there. It displaces human know-how and creativity. This is what I was telling you before, that we forget we have the most sophisticated machine inside our heads. It makes us forget this. It can make up things and mislead consumers. Yeah, this is very important. It sacrifices quality for doing it fast and cheap, sacrifices quality. And it prevents you from discovering new experiences and embarking in the adventure of communicating them, which is the most passionate part of our work. No? If we are journalists, we are not journalists for the money, because I don't know, in New Jersey, Joe will tell us, but in Spain, journalists are very badly paid. And in many parts of the world, we are not like, it's not a career to be rich, but it's a career to enjoy. It's something to enjoy. This discovering new experiences, research, talking to people, and communicating them. So if we lose this, then we're losing all the interesting part of our profession, of our work. It may be good if you are lazy. That's very useful if you are lazy. It's very useful also if you lack abilities as a travel journalist or as a photographer. Very useful. It's very useful if you need the work done in 1 hour and you didn't have the time to accomplish it in the human way. And it's very useful if you're a company holder and you want to maximize benefits as a priority, hiring less real people. And many people say there's no way back. Like they say, Laura, you can say anything you want. You can critique it. You don't agree. Okay, but this is what it is. This is the future, and it's not way back. I think this is a lie. I think there's always way back, and we people have a say in this and in everything. I will tell you something that is, I think is very interesting. Here in Spain, like in many places, the electronic devices were introduced in schools, and children had all their tablets, and they did their homework on electronic devices. And I used to protest. I used to say, I don't want my children. I want them to write. They don't know how to write. Why do you give them a tablet? And I always protested in school, and everybody told me, but this is the future. This is it. You cannot do anything. You cannot resist. And you know what? This year, in September, a new law in Spain has forbidden tablets and electronic devices in schools, in primary schools. So there is way back. It depends on we, the people, if we swallow everything they are giving us, or if we say, hey, we want this, or we don't want this. So we have the power to decide. This is something we have to remember. And yeah, but it's true that this is true. This we cannot deny. 70% of travel companies use generative AI in the communication and content strategies because it's cheaper. And 5 out of 10 travelers already use ChatGPT or something similar to plan their trips. That's true. But this is something that is there. So we are in a moment, I think we are in a crossroads where we can do things. And what we can do, first of all, we can think. It seems something obvious, but it is not. At present, we have very little time to think. We go very fast. We do what we are told to do, and everything seems like we cannot do anything. We cannot change anything. But this is not true. We have to stop and think what we want to do and how we want to do it. And second, we have to choose. We have to make use of our, how you say, freedom of will. We have we have freedom to choose. We have to choose what we want as a consumer and also as a journalist that produces the content. We have to choose. And also, another very important thing is transparency. I think that always the products should be labeled, and consumers should always know what has been produced by AI. This is something that, yes, is the ethical thing to do. Yes, forget trust, always double check. Remember that it doesn't matter if something written by a chatbot is very reasonable. Don't be fooled with that, because it can be false. Doesn't matter, it's reasonable. You always have to double check. Also, I wrote here, lying and cheating is a sin. It's not only a sin because the religions say so. It's a sin because by doing this, we deny reality. And reality is great and fantastic, and we are here to explore it. So by lying and cheating, we are denying ourselves the right to live in reality. I think we also should protect our production, like our products are as journalists, so they are not used to train artificial intelligence models. And also, I think we should make ourselves this question: do you really want to be a journalist? Because it implies experience, compromise. Compromise is very important. When you are a journalist, you have a big responsibility with the public, huge responsibility. You serve the public, and you cannot be a journalist if you are cheating your public. So compromise is a important pillar of being a journalist. You also need critical thinking, and you also need a lot of time. Yes, doing an article, doing your work needs time. So if you want to do it fast, maybe you shouldn't be a journalist. So I mean fast and with a machine. So more or less, this is my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you understood my English. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. It was perfect.
Okay.
Joe, would you like to continue?
Sure. First of all, I just want to say that I think there's so many great points that Laura made. I especially love the idea of, not surrendering our critical thinking, and especially the idea of spending time with an idea or a concept over a longer period of time. Gulliver's Travels is a formative classic that my father had me read as a kid, and I've recently started going back and rereading a lot of the books that I was sort of forced to read as a kid and didn't really fully appreciate the depth. And I try to make a point of reading. I try to get at least 40 books per year, and I hit 45 last year. And just under my goal. I tried to hit 50, but I only got 45. And I think I bring that up not to flex or to brag, but to drive home Laura's point that there is a reason why long form media like books have endured over the years and over the centuries, when even alongside the increases or changes in, and I'm just going to stop Laura's screen share, I think.
Yeah. I do it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a reason why that sort of media has endured over the centuries, in spite of the advancements in the short form and the TikToks and everything. And I think, at least in America, unfortunately, if you read at least one or two books each year, you are in the top like 60% of readers. And it's sad because I think it is important to the way that our brains work to spend a lengthy amount of time with a certain topic or piece of information because it shapes the way that your brain interprets it. And there is a tendency when we use these large language models to go for those quick hits, to get comfortable or complacent with the seemingly accurate or reasonable responses that we get from the bots. And I would like to encourage journalists, especially, and people who are serious about their work, to take a step back and do exactly what Lara said, to use your free will, to choose, if you are going to use these tools, to go beyond what I think the knee-jerk reaction is, or the people who tend to sort of see these at a surface level. I've tried using these tools to write content. I've tried using these tools to edit content. And Laura's absolutely right. They're terrible. And even when they do sound good, because if we just assumed, let's say, all the things that Laura said that the bots are unable to do. Let's assume that a year from now, they are able to produce a perfect story, or they are able to regurgitate accurate information. That still robs you of the capability and the privilege of spending time with that material and growing as a person. And I think we as an industry need to dive a little deeper and understand that um, a lot of these tools, when used properly, or when used in the way that I think you should be using them, which is to use AI to make something that doesn't use AI. That's personally why I use these tools almost exclusively now to do things like write code. So my job I wouldn't consider myself a journalist. I'm more of a journalist support. I'm journalism adjacent, but I've moved beyond the idea of using them to write copy and using them to express, because I think, Lara, again, I know this is supposed to be a debate, but I'm just agreeing with most of what you said. I think the real value in art and in human narrative is not the output; it is the decisions that go into every single step along the way, the millions of decisions that go into a piece of art or a painting or an article. That being said, what I think the value of these tools can be is when you have taken the time as a human being to go out and do the research yourself, to go out and experience, to travel, to write notes and record and document. The thing that I find the most useful for is to take all that information and reorganize it, or to create a web version of it, for example, or to compile and consolidate the human gathered information into a format that you, as a journalist, who, as we've discussed, don't have a lot of time, barely even enough time to think, let alone learn how to write CSS or JavaScript. And so one thing that I've found really useful for them is to stop thinking of them as content machines and start thinking of them as tools that will allow you to repurpose what you've already done for other formats. And this allows you to sort of cut out that concern. And again, I agree. I think the idea of a publisher, or I think a lot of people, when they think of using these tools, they are sort of implicitly assuming that the people who publish this are just asking ChatGPT a question, they get an answer, and then they publish that answer. And I think that is objectively terrible. I think that it is harmful and destructive to our industry. And I think that as an editor or as a publisher, you should treat any text or content that appears at your desk the same way you would if it came from a staffer or a freelancer. You should verify it, because as a publisher and as an editor, your role is to be able to stand by and defend and be responsible and accountable for whatever you put out in your publication. I don't care where it came from. If you didn't take the time to verify it and to make sure that it's accurate, you've failed as a journalist and as a publisher. And I think you're in the wrong business if you are simply taking any text, whether it's from a human or a robot, and just throwing it out there because it sounds good. So I think if we move away from that notion that these tools are for making content, I like to tell my students, and excuse the profanity, but if you didn't give enough of a shit to write it, why would you expect anyone else to give enough of a shit to read it? And I think that is a really important maxim to consider and to keep at the front of mind, because again, at the end, it is the whole point, especially for travel journalism, is to be able to share your experience and your insights as you navigate the real world. It's one of the few areas in journalism where, and I'm sure there are multiple, but it's one of the few areas in journalism where it really does matter if you've had boots on the ground, if you've been to that place. Anybody can go on Google Maps and look at photos and say, this looks like a really nice place to visit. Anybody can say, well, Google Maps says that you go here, or Apple Maps says that this is a great place to go. But I don't trust Google Maps over an individual or a human being. And so why would I trust another abstraction on top of that by saying, well, the Google bots looked at Google Maps and said that it looks good. And I think a lot of readers and travelers, fellow travelers, will find out very quickly how inaccurate and how dangerous that can be. And I don't think it'll take very long for them to distrust it as much as Lara and the rest of us do. The first time it says, oh, go to this great, beautiful historic church that looks amazing, and it's a great experience, and it's a rundown building at a different part of the country, and it just gets it completely wrong. What I would argue is instead of relying on the conclusions of the large language models, I would rely on my own research and then use it to write code that can be reproduced and can serve a function and build tools for the journalists themselves, individual tools or software that normally the typically cash-strapped newsroom or journalist would have to either pay someone to write or create for them, or would have to, pay for an expensive subscription. So one of the things that I've used these tools to build for myself is an itinerary generator. I give it all the information myself, and all it does is turn it into a PDF with a design that I've already implemented, or an itinerary, web page creator. And I do have an early one up here that I can just show really briefly. It's not super special. There's nothing, amazing about it. But I went to Rhode Island with a friend of mine, and we gathered all the information. We fed it into the bot. We verified all the information, and all I had it do was turn it into an interactive web version that I could share with my friend, with links to the dive bars that we've looked at, the local gems and things like that. All of this information was gathered and compiled and verified by myself and my friend, but instead of having it in a series of 3 spreadsheets or, in a Google Doc, now it's an interactive web page that I can click on the bar and it'll automatically open the Google Maps link and get us directions. So it almost seems like it's almost boring, really. And I think that's where a lot of the value of these tools can be. It's not in the fantastical, journey through the experience of human narrative and emotion. It's, hey, this information is messy. Can I get it cleaned up? And can I make sure as a human being that it makes sense and that it's accurate? Another thing that I found it useful for is scrapers, or the ability to ping or pull in the latest weather or traffic or closures, opens and closures information on a schedule. So if I'm going to be going on a trip, and I'm looking for a cheap flight or an affordable train, and I have it create a little bot that gives me an email every morning and says, here are the latest prices for the tickets, and then I just watch and I wait for it to sink below my price line, and then I know, hey, it's affordable now. I'm going to buy that. These are fundamentally boring concepts, and I think that is where these tools need to remain, is in the realm of, this is boring or this is not flashy. This is something that I would have had to learn how to write Python in order to do. And because you're using these to generate code, if I ask the AI bot a question and it gives me an answer, that answer may sound really convincing, but may be ultimately wrong. But on the other hand, if I ask the bot to write code to do a certain task or to perform a task, and the code is wrong, the code will not work. And so that is where you start to go from, okay, this is sometimes useful, or it's neat, or it's cute, to this can actually be useful, because the sort of the validity and the value of the code is sort of baked into the output. Because again, if the code is wrong, or if the code doesn't work, then the program doesn't work, or the software doesn't work. And there are entire conversations that we can have about doing something like that and using these bots to write code for a production level program or application. Security concerns. Is it going to expose, sensitive information? But when we're talking about personal software, the ability to speak to my computer literally speak to my computer, have it understand, or at least quote unquote understand or interpret what I mean, and then write software that performs those tasks or does the thing that I'm asking of it. That is a huge value add. And I think there are a lot of journalists who are often bombarded or buried by the onslaught of technology and the ability to navigate it, that having something that speaks code and also speaks in your native language, whether it be English or Spanish or so forth, I think that can be really useful, even if the end result is not, and especially when the end result is not a story or a review or some kind of public facing content. Using these tools internally to help amplify or augment your own capabilities and your ability to gather more information and assess it yourself using your own brain is great, especially when you're talking about the type of information or the type of tools that you may not even know exist. One of the biggest values that I've found in this is the idea of vocabulary. As Laura said, these tools are not coming up with novel concepts. They're simply reimagining or regurgitating or reshuffling existing concepts. Well, the fact is there are a lot of existing structures and formats and concepts in the world of software and code and basically computer related things that I didn't even know exist. And all I have to do is to learn the term for them or the vocabulary word. And all of a sudden I can employ or deploy that tried and true structure that baked into the training data set, a Python script or an R data analysis kind of a script that ultimately, going back to my point, is that I'm using the AI tools to make something that does not use AI. It simply uses AI to structure it, and then the tool or the software platform itself does the work automatically. It is not something that constantly has to go back to an AI or a language model and have it, roll the dice and hope that it's correct. Once it's correct, it works, and then it continues to work. And if there's something wrong with it, in the case of programming, I can simply feed the error message that I get, which is usually indecipherable to an average person who's not a coder or a software developer. I can feed that error message back in, explain what I'm trying to do, explain what's going wrong, and work with the tool to get it right. And then I abandon the AI again, and I'm back on my own. So these kinds of self-contained internal tools that don't require disclosure, they don't require public consumption or risking using public information or even private information inappropriately can be really valuable. And I think when journalists and editors and publishers move beyond the chatbot interface and start using these tools in the terminal or in the command line or in PowerShell or any of these tools that are usually seen as scary or overly complicated because they're in the computer, I think you'll start to see that there is some value in those. And we can need to move beyond the idea that these things ever should, could, or would write content for us and should instead help us make tools for ourselves that are customized to our own needs, that don't require a third-party tech vendor or any of these other grifters or $29.99 a month, $19.99 a month, to start using those to make our own software. And so that I know it's a little bit different and it's not exactly travel journalism, but I think that journalism and media professionals in general would benefit from understanding these tools from that perspective, rather than, do I want it to write my content? Is it capable of writing my content? Why would anybody read the content? Get that out of your mind and focus more on what are some tools that would make my job more effective, make me more effective, and make my job a little bit easier? And how can I make them for me, by me, as opposed to paying an infinite number of subscriptions just to keep them going? I think the best way that you can position yourself for this is to continue doing good work, good human produced work. And as I mentioned earlier, I think we're seeing this across the board. People who rely on these tools, or not even just the tools themselves, but who are encountering AI generated writing and content, have and will continue to very quickly realize how shitty it is. And even if it gets to the point where it can produce an acceptable version, I think you will see very quickly that the whole reason why they're able to do this is because they were trained on real human writing and real human content. And not only will the public slowly, and they've already started this, not only will the public eventually come to realize that it makes more work for them as a consumer, as a reader, to have to always be skeptical of whether or not the person who generated the content or the publication who generated the content checks their work, or one mistake or one bad experience is all it takes. I mean, you all know this as writers on the internet. All it takes is somebody. You don't even have to make a mistake. If they just don't follow your instructions correctly, they're done with you. You can lose someone so quickly, even if they do something wrong. So I think we're going to see that, and we already have across the board, see those mistakes compound and multiply, and the trust of the readers and of the travelers and so forth, and of the communities and audiences will fade immediately. They will disappear, and they will realize, much like, unfortunately, much like a lot of the CEOs, there's a bunch of stories now about Salesforce and how, like, 4 months ago, the Salesforce CEO was like, we're laying off 4,000 people because I can do all this with AI. And 3 months later, oops, they're hiring a bunch of people back because they realized, oh, that actually sucks. So whether it's at the CEO level where I mean, unfortunately, those people did lose their jobs first. And this is an instance of capitalism and the idea of the people who are in charge of things, who have unchecked power, getting dazzled or tricked by a fancy shiny new object and being able to just wipe people's jobs off the map. That is an issue with the governance and the ownership structure of the companies that we're working for. But even without that, the idea that people are going to just be forgiving when they get sent to an abandoned warehouse instead of a hotel because the chatbot gave them the wrong thing, there will be an increased premium on no AI used or human certified content. So my best advice to journalists, early career journalists, late career journalists, is to keep producing excellent shit, because people like good shit and they will go find good shit. They will seek it out. And in many cases, they'll even pay for the good shit because that is what they want, and they will go to lengths to find it. And so as long as you keep producing good shit, you will be on top in the end. It may be rough here and there because some bosses or CEOs don't appreciate that, but the best way to position yourself in the long term is to keep your skills sharp, keep your content good and authentic and high quality, and just keep doing what you're doing. There's a reason why this profession has been around for so long. When the computer came along, it didn't destroy it. When the typewriter came along, it didn't destroy it, because the value is not in the content. The value is in the human experience and the connection between people, especially in the area of travel and the reality that we all have to live in.
Okay, thank you so much.
Laura, we cannot hear you. You're silent.
A ver, ya está. I was saying that I agree totally with Joe, and also Fatma. Yes, I would say persevere. You know, I have been a freelance journalist for 30 years. You know, this is tough to be a freelance journalist, and I pay my bills with this, you know. And the only way to get through to this being is to persevere. You say that in English, Joe? Persevere? Perseverance, no? This is, and if you're doing a good work, this is what you have to hang on to, no? And I think that maybe I'm sure that shortly it will begin to be sold as like as the organic food that is more expensive than the other food, but it's people appreciate the quality and they buy it, or the, like I was saying, 100% real wool jumper, like these things. Yes, it's good shit, like Joe says.
So I think there's also a role there for some kind of machine learning to make your content more accessible, whether it's transcriptions and making sure that it's accessible to people who use screen readers, or it is working with human translators, as we do here in New Jersey, work with a team of human translators to make sure that any AI generated content or any English language content is accurately translated to colloquial Spanish, Latin American Spanish. So I think there is a role there as long as, again, the whole point is not to just get it translated or to make the content, it's to make it useful and make it correct and accurate.
Yeah.
So whether a
Mm-hmm.
translation comes from a human being or a translation comes from a bot or a combination, you as the
Mm-hmm.
publisher and the editor, your job is to make sure that it's accurate and it's useful, not that it, was born of a certain, origin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank you. There's another question for the two of us, two of you. Sorry. Is it
Yeah, it's a
enough
great.
just just to write quality content, or do travel journalists also need to rethink formats that are more likely to highlight their human experiences that can be reproduced by AI?
I think it's never enough to just write quality content. It never has been enough to just do good things. You also have to be in the spaces and meet people where they're at. And at the same time, it's not enough. You don't want to dumb down your work or reduce it to the lowest common attention span. I mean, we've seen this with a million different the pivot to video 86 times a year, apparently. Every time there's a new shiny toy that comes out, people say, oh, keep making quality, but now it needs to be in a 30-second video, or now we need to do it in Snapchat stories or whatever. The core of what we do has to be good quality work. Whether or not you are able to meet people where they are without diminishing or reducing that quality is a skill that goes beyond simply writing and editing. So it's always going to be important to not only understand the newest technology, but to be able to swim in it a little bit. I'm not saying you have to live in there, but you have to be able to take, do a cannonball into the deep end and figure out how to get out. If everybody is experiencing or consuming something in a particular way, and you're over here on the shore just doing your own thing, obviously that's not going to work. But the idea of recreating human experience, you have to follow the common methods that a lot of people engage with your content, but that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice the quality in order to do that. And in most cases, whether it's Snapchat stories or a pivot to video, over and over again, uh, the core quality remains the same. People will do tech fads and trends all day, and editors and managers and publishers will always want you to learn a new skill without paying you any extra money, I might add. So you'll always have to sort of adapt to the format or the medium of the time. But underneath all of that, if your content and your quality and your work is garbage, it doesn't matter what format you put the garbage in or what wrapper you put around it. You're still going to be giving people garbage. So that, I think, it's sort of a hybrid answer there. You still have to do good work, but you also have to understand that people aren't reading printed out flyers. You can't just print out flyers and throw them around town anymore. You have to understand that some people get their information via text message or an email newsletter, or God forbid, a short video, and then you have a link back to your larger article. Adapting does not mean sacrificing quality, but sacrificing quality always goes wrong.
Yeah, and I would add, if I can, that we are talking about what we journalists can do, no? Like Brian, your question, also yours, Fatma, what we can do so our work is appreciated. But I think it's not just a matter of what we can do. It's all the society. I think it's a cultural problem. It's all the society has to think and reflect and realize that if we like if what you do, if you do what the artificial intelligence is telling you to do, if you go where the Google Maps tells you to go, if you write what ChatGPT writes for you, then what differences you from a robot? So this is something like bigger. It's a bigger picture. It's not just a journalist problem or artist's problem. It's like the whole society has this problem, and the whole society and all our culture has to take his place, posicionarse, no? Decide where I want to be and how do I want to relate with this technology. No? Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. We have here another comment. Very interesting subject, though education has the duty to give the right discipline to use those new tools. It is too recent and there will be improvements. It depends on our politicians to engage in a debate. I work in hospitality and the truth journalism is very important. And we have here another question from Sandra. I think that AI creates a big trust issue around journalistic content. How can we make sure that people trust into pictures or text being made by real human beings?
How do you
This
get
goes.
them to trust you now? Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you go first.
No, I think that this has to do with this. It is very important to label the content. I think that our contents should be labeled, and the AI law in Europe, the European Artificial Intelligence Act, says this. No, we have to label the contents and to know, let the people know who created those texts and pictures. Also, they can be made by a human and be fake. That also can be true. It has always happened, no? But at least they should be labeled. The public should request this. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would just say, how do you get people to trust that what you do now is accurate or before AI? It's a track record, it's a history, it's a demonstrated dedication to providing useful and accurate information. And again, all it takes is one wrong bad experience and people are not going to trust you anymore. So, photo editing and manipulation and visual effects and CGI has been around for decades. It used to take years of training and experience to produce fake images, and now anybody can do it with a single sentence, right, or and a reference image. But the core functionality here is, it's the same. It's does this outlet, organization, or person have a history of trustworthiness, and have they burned me before? And if not, I think, especially as everything comes into question, as everything is possibly AI or fake, it will be a unique and like intimate comfort for readers to know that this publication, this journalist has not done me wrong, and I can cling to them because they are dedicated and committed to making sure that my experiences are as good as they can be. And again, all it takes is a mistake or a slip up. So you want to make sure that you are being very vigilant about this. As far as disclosures and labels go, I think that's very important. I think there's a larger conversation that is important to have about what we disclose in the industry. I think that a lot of readers, common readers or average readers would be surprised to learn, for example, that the headlines are often written by different people than the people who write the content. That is something that most average readers don't know. So there are entire layers of this industry that deserve to have the curtain peeled back so that people who will read and consume our work have a better understanding of what goes into that work. And I think that would do us a lot of favors as an industry or as a publication. I do think, though, that I've seen a lot of publications who like to throw a disclaimer and use it not as a disclosure, but as an accountability sink or a cover my ass kind of line that says, hey, a robot did this. It might be wrong. Who knows? Like that. That's not helpful. That's not disclosure. That's simply laziness. And if you are really interested in disclosing and pulling back the curtain and being more transparent about how you do your work and how the industry works, there are many ways to do that. And there are there are entire schools and programs dedicated to engaging with the community and figuring out how to do journalism with them and not just for them. Do we need a 500-page article with a 500-word article with a 750-word disclosure of every Lightroom preset, every web browser you used, every, Grammarly edit? Like, no, I don't think so. Do we need zero disclosure? No, I think there's a middle ground there. And I like to use what I call the materiality principle. Is there a substantive impact on the content that you're making that has been done by the tool? If you're using a tool that has a substantive material impact on the output or the quality of the work, then I do think it's important to disclose it. But on the other hand, do we need to, bury the reader in a bunch of jargon and technical stuff like that on every article? Probably not. It might make sense to have a page where you discuss how your organization employs these tools. It might make sense to host events and workshops and behind the scenes co-creation or hackathons with your readers to say, let's see if you can do what we do, and let's see if you can go through these processes to demonstrate all the work that goes into the work that you rely on for your trips or for your travel or for your day-to-day information. There are a million different things that we can do that, yes, take time. They're not immediate, they're not instant, but they go a long way towards building that trust that is lasting and is not simply, hey, we have a disclaimer, we have a sentence at the end of our article that says the bots were used in this, because that doesn't do anything for anyone. And I think it would probably add more suspicion and confusion than if you were to actually take the time to really go behind the curtain and show what goes into this work.
Okay, we have here, is it realistic to make laws for using AI labels also across all content in social media?
Social media is the jungle. So how can you make laws for the jungle? I don't know. In Spanish you say la ley de la jungla. In English, law of the jungle. I don't know. This is the jungle, but who knows? I don't make laws, but maybe something. What do you say, Joe?
I think it's possible to make laws. I think it's good. I think there should be regulation. I don't think it's going to prevent it from ever happening, but I do think adding the risk of penalty if you get caught will dissuade a lot of people who would have otherwise just done it. And I think that the idea of making it, adding some kind of cost to doing it nefariously or in bad faith is a great way to, like I said, deter people who would have otherwise just done it because it was fun and there's no risk of any downside. Even if it's simple, account suspension or banning, there are rules about disclosing advertising and, business sponsorships. Does that mean that there are no videos on TikTok of people who are promoting a product without properly labeling it? No. But when they are caught doing so, there's recourse and there's the ability to either punish or to make that right. And I think the alternative of just allowing people to do whatever they want is way worse. Even if we overshoot a little bit on the regulation, I think it's worth attempting to prevent some of the more egregious harms that could come from free range or free run. I mean, the idea of YouTube automatically captioning videos where the creator did not take the time to create a transcript and provide closed captions, I think is an unambiguously good thing. The idea that people who can't, who have hearing or vision are able to engage with and enjoy the content on that platform by default is excellent, especially with so many publications and journalists treating accessibility like an afterthought. I think that's unambiguously good. We start to get into weird territory when you are using technology without the consent of the creator or without the ability for the creator to opt out, to have them say things in their voice, moving their mouth in a completely different way that is not obviously a feature like an accessibility feature. No one bats an eye when there is auto-generated captions on a YouTube video. No one bats an eye, and in fact, they cheer it when the captions can be translated into multiple languages. But you get into a different territory when you have these AI transcriptions beyond transcriptions. Now I'm speaking in broken Spanish or Hungarian or whatever with my voice that has now been cloned and is used not just for that accessibility feature, but for a number of other unknown, possibly, commercial uses that is buried in the terms of use or the end user license agreement. So I think that's where regulation can come in. The idea of even a simple requirement that, users have to opt in, not even just opt out, but have to actively opt in order to do this, in the same way that the rules in the EU require people to have to opt in to receive email news notifications and newsletters from companies, a double opt-in to say, hey, you've been subscribed to this newsletter, confirm your subscription. there are a million different little really simple tools that are already being employed in other areas that can help to prevent or to avoid some of those issues where consent is not involved. If I don't have time to translate and re-record and put on an accent and say the language, speak it in the language that's accurate, and I'm willing and I consent to having my content translated in my voice, that's totally fine. But I shouldn't have to. That shouldn't be enabled by default, and I should have to actively give my consent in order to do that, or be given some kind of other option. I don't think that that's outrageous. I don't think that that's something that's going to bankrupt companies if they can't automatically do it. I think it's a very reasonable regulation that is right there for the taking. That would add a lot of trust, not just on the reader or the viewer, but from the creators who will feel much more inclined to continue contributing to that platform if they know that their data, their information security and privacy are taken seriously, at least to that bare minimum level.
Yes, I agree with the opt-in thing. I agree, and also this you were there's another thing that happens, that also there can be mistakes, and sometimes they can be very important mistakes in the book. There's an example that is very interesting. There's a man, a Palestinian man, that he posted a photo in his Facebook page, and he said use be who whom, which which in Arab means something like good day, but it was translated automatically by the program as attack them, and he was immediately captured and put into jail because this thing he posted, but he didn't say. Afterwards, he was freed, and Facebook what said was, unfortunately, our translation system made a mistake last week and translated badly what this man posted. So the mistakes can be little mistakes, but also can be very significant mistakes. Yeah, so this is another point to have into account.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. Okay, we are on time of ending the debate. Do you want to share anything else? Okay, so thank you all for being here. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Joe. It was very interesting.